Lori, did you know that the average cost of a Walt Disney World vacation for 2025 is going to run you $7,093? That's for a family of 4, according to an analysis by Mouse Hacking. It included flights, transportation, a stay at the resort, park tickets, and meals. $7,093 for a 5-night trip to Walt Disney World. That's crazy. That's a lot of dough.
That's a lot of money. And here's the thing. As you might imagine, the cost of a Disney vacation is going to depend on a lot of factors. That's an average across everything. But there are a lot of ways to make it not cost $7,000. And we're probably going to talk about the most significant way to reduce the overall cost of your trip on this podcast.
Unless you're willing to not eat any food on your vacation, listen up. At Walt Disney World in Florida, there's more than 25 different resorts to choose from, and they really vary a lot in price. So there's 3 different tiers that Disney sets. There's the deluxe resorts, that's like the Polynesian. There's the moderate resorts, that's like Port Orleans. And then there's the value resorts. So we're going to talk about those today. And there's 5 of them?
There are 5,
okay.
Yes.
So value resorts are a really great way to do Disney on a budget. And we're going to give you all the inside info. So let's get started.
Okay, so first I want to talk about the fact that they call them value resorts. They could have called them cheap, budget, affordable, but they chose the word value, and I think it's a good choice for Disney because Disney wants you to focus not on what you're giving up or the price itself, but rather, what you're actually getting for the money you spend. So,
well, it's smoke and mirrors marketing, of course.
Sure.
I happen to agree with this one though, because if you called them like the affordable resorts or whatever, I do actually think it paints it in a light that is not really true, right? I mean, because the value resorts are like great.
Also, affordable to who?
Exactly. It's all, yeah.
Yeah. So the value resorts, naturally being the lowest tier of a Disney hotel, you are going to be giving up some perks and some luxuries that you might find at other Disney hotels. And the question is always, is it worth it? And the answer totally depends on your family and what matters to you when you're going on vacation. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on here.
We do have a take, so stick around to the end of the video because it's not just some bullshit where we're going to end this by saying, well, it really depends. We do have a definite take and a recommendation, so stick with us to the end.
Yeah, we've stayed at all the tiers of the resorts. Spent a lot of time at the value resorts.
So let's talk about the resorts themselves. So here are the resorts. There's the All-Star resorts, which include All-Star Sports, All-Star Movies, and All-Star Music, and all 3 of those are grouped together. They are near Pop Century and Art of Animation. Those 2 resorts are grouped together. So is that how it works? It's like you get the 3 and then the 2?
It does, yeah. Essentially, the All-Star, you can walk among all 3 of them. And in fact, they're so grouped together that they share a magnet. That's how I think of it.
And a lot of people who talk about the All-Star resorts just wrap them up into the same thing. They are very similar.
Yeah, but they're on kind of a little island of their own. And then, and then Pop Century and Art of Animation are very much sister locations.
So geography-wise, these are in the southern part of the Disney World Resort, and that makes them all the farthest from Magic Kingdom. So you're not going to be walking to Magic Kingdom for sure. And if you have a lot of Magic Kingdom plans, you're going to need to factor in some extra travel time for sure. The All-Star Resorts are closest to Animal Kingdom, and Animal Kingdom sort of exists off on its own separate from the other 3 Disney World resorts, like in a slightly different geographic location. Pop Century and Art of Animation are a little closer to Hollywood Studios. Again, you're not going to walk there, but when you're planning getting around on your vacation, the proximity to the different parks really makes a pretty big difference in how your day ends up going.
Yeah, and it's this only really becomes relevant if you're driving around the Walt Disney World Resort, because they always assign a resort to an area. And I want to say that the All-Star is assigned to like the Animal Kingdom Resort area. The Art of Animation and Pop Century are assigned very strangely to like something called like the ESPN Wide World of Sports area or something.
Which they need to stop calling it that area because...
But I mean, this becomes relevant only if you're navigating in your car and like looking at the Disney World signage and trying to get around. So, okay, so we're talking about value resorts. The biggest issue you'll probably want to factor in is price. So what are you actually spending for these resorts? Well, so the average weekly cost of a room at a Walt Disney World Value Resort is between, and this is if you're staying a full week, is between $1,100.
And hang on, 7 days?
7 days.
Okay, this is opposed to that baseline,
correct,
or that average price that we set at the top of the show.
Yeah, it's not apples to apples here, but an average 7-night stay would be between $1,100. That, in my opinion, that's really low. That's got to be like the lowest day of the year, and $2,450, and that averages out to between $157 and $350 per night. So that right there is kind of a wide range. A lot of factors influence the price you actually pay. Season is definitely the biggest factor, but there are variances among the resorts themselves. They're all in the value tier, but there is definite differences in prices.
And I'll say, just from recent experience, it is still totally possible to find rooms nightly rates under $200 on a regular basis. So even though you might be looking at like $350 per night, that's really on the high end. And if you do your homework, you pay a lot less than that.
Yeah. So for comparison purposes, the average weekly cost of a moderate resort is between $2,000 and $3,800. That averages out to about $285 to $540 a night. And then the average weekly cost at a deluxe resort, the site that I got these averages from says that this isn't even really a useful number. Because
I would agree with that.
The deluxe resorts vary so much. They essentially refused to ballpark a week and just said you're going to pay a minimum of $500 to $600 per night, and that is definitely a minimum in my experience, especially if you're traveling during anything resembling a vacation time.
Right, or like if there's a Run Disney event or something like that. I will say, though, that you can get that price down by scrolling through the resorts and seeing which ones are undergoing refurbishment. We stayed at Caribbean Beach Resort for the first time when that was being worked on. I think we maybe paid like half. And, like there's construction noise. It's not, it spoils the illusion a little bit, but if we're talking about saving money, and so if you're insistent upon not taking our advice and staying at a value resort, there are other ways to save money on these expensive rooms.
Yeah, look for the resorts that are closing a pool.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you want to talk about transportation?
Yeah, that's a big factor.
So and it's a time factor, right? Because you don't have to pay for transportation. It is included in the cost of what you're doing at Disney World. You can take buses, you can take the Skyliner, you can take the monorail, you can take ferries. Depending on your resort, you can take friendship boats. Those don't launch from any of the value resorts, though. You just need to look at a map and see how far away your resort is from the park that you're visiting that day. And if you're park hopping, factor that in, too. If you're taking buses, you're going to have to probably think about how long it might take you to get on a bus. So if you're leaving your resort in the morning and waiting for a bus, or if you are leaving a theme park in the evening and waiting for a bus, you're going to want to factor in an extra 30 minutes to an hour maybe for that. There's also how much it's going to cost you to get from place to place. If you've got hungry, crying kids, you are over it, you want your day to be over, you are seeing that you are at least 2 busloads of people away and you're ready to just call an Uber. I would say have that be a plan B. I mean, if that's in your budget and you got to just make that call at the time, we have done that lots of times in the past. Another alternative is going to be minivans, but that's like the most expensive way to get around the Disney World Resort. I love it because it's like having your own private little like historical tour, because the minivans are all driven by cast members and you hire those cars through Lyft. So it's like a partnership between Disney and Lyft. As I said before, none of the value resorts are remotely walkable to any of the parks. You got more transportation details?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. With the value resorts, you are giving up some of the more convenient options. You know, I think a lot of people who haven't spent much time at the resort see the monorail plastered on everything and they're like, cool, just hop on the monorail. It's like, no, the monorail, that is like a deluxe resort type of thing. The more, I'd say the transportation opportunities, like as you move up the ladder in terms of price, become greater.
Right.
So you get the least number of options. For the most part, it's shuttles. That's all you get at All-Star Resorts.
And when you say shuttles, like buses, right?
Buses,
like,
yeah. So all the extra time and uncertainty that comes with those. The exception would be the Skyliner, and that services Pop Century and Art of Animation. It does not service the All-Star Resorts. So those are the built-in transportation options. If you drove on your vacation, you can always hop in your car and go park at the parks. Even with a value resort, your cost of parking at a park is included. So that is a nice option. But
I'm curious.
I don't think it always has been.
Okay, if you know person watching or listening to this podcast, it wasn't always like that, right? Like I can't find somebody saying like when it was and when it wasn't, but I don't remember parking being included.
Yeah, I don't think it always has been. I think that's changed over time. I think at some point it was tiered, that like free parking was a perk of the higher tier resorts.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't confirm that when I went researching for this podcast.
Right on.
I found that it was all included. So also worth pointing out, the Skyliner doesn't get you everywhere in the resort. It's a cool option because it's like a ride in itself. It's these gondolas in the sky. It's super cool as long as you don't have a paralyzing fear of heights, which is just totally a factor for a lot of people. But it will get you to Hollywood Studios and Epcot, and that's it. But Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, you're gonna have to figure out something else.
And depending on the time of day, the Skyliner might or might not be a faster option than buses. The Skyliner is sort of like an omni-mover system. I mean, in the sense that it doesn't really stop very much, whereas buses do lots of starts and stops. I can't speak from personal experience because I've never been on the Skyliner because I do have a rather crippling fear of heights. But what's your experience been? Like, do you ride Skyliner to get around? Do you use buses? Do you use minivans? Like, leave me a comment. Let me know. I'm actually really curious about how other people get around the resort. For us, we now factor in the cost of minivans, which adds a lot to the price of the vacation. But we've kind of come out on the other end of all the transportation options and realized that like we'd rather stay in a more affordable hotel and use some of our budget for easier transportation. Because I would say that like at Walt Disney World, that might be the most surprising thing to people that are visiting there for the first time, is truly how long it takes to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a kick in the shins because the value resorts, for a number of reasons, are going to appeal to families, and particularly families with small kiddos. And like the thing that affects families with small kiddos the most is transportation. Like if you're an adult, if you're just a couple on a Disney vacation and you're in love and you're having fun, like who cares? Ride the shuttle, take your time. What do you care? But if you have a screaming 3-year-old who has not had a snack or a nap and you just want to get the hell back to your resort, it's a different story. So.
Yeah, it really is. And by the way, Disney buses are not like immune to bus social theory. So you're going to probably end up with a story or two if you ride the bus, for better or for worse.
Yeah. Sometimes, late at night and midday, you might get yourself an empty bus, but you might also have standing room only, they pack them in.
They really do. It's like sardines in there. Well, let's talk about amenities, because all of the value resorts are laid out similarly. So it can actually get kind of confusing sometimes. We've been to all of the value resorts multiple times over the years, and when we're putting together something like this podcast, it's so hard for me to remember where is where, because they could all be the same one, with the exception of Art of Animation, which is different in some distinct ways. So the way that they're laid out, there's a main hall, right? A gigantic building right at the front of the resort, and that's going to have the food court, the gift shops, other amenities like the arcades and caricature artists, and that's where check-in is. All of the All-Star resorts are pretty big, and they have multiple buildings, and if you end up booked in one of the buildings that's like way over on the opposite side of the resort, and you're depending on getting back and forth to the main hall for, a lot of your entertainment, all of your food, and certainly that's where all of the transportation, with the exception of minivans, which will take you directly to the parking lots behind each building, all that public transportation, like the shuttles and the Skyliner in a different place, you're going to have to walk to that. It's not going to come to you. All of the resorts have a big pool, one big pool that's right there outside the main hall. And then all of them have at least one other. Some have two other pools that are like smaller pools kind of tucked back into other areas of the resort. As far as like basic amenities for travel, most of that's covered. They've got laundry facilities, and I've used all of the laundry facilities at all of the value resorts. They're fine, actually. The system that runs...
They keep getting better, actually. Yeah.
I think the last time I did laundry, they've upgraded to like a QR code system where you just scan it with your phone, and then it'll like text you when your laundry's done. Like it's pretty cool. What else? All of them will allow deliveries. So if you want to get groceries delivered, if you forgot I don't know what's it. I've had so many vacations where I've forgotten something at Disney. And
I'm not sure I've had a vacation where I haven't forgotten something.
Yeah, and we just had to like overnight something from Best Buy. Like I desperately needed a battery for a camera or something. Anyway, they'll accept those deliveries and hold them for you. And all of them have arcades, which is great if you got gamer kids. And all of them have playgrounds, which we always point this out when we're doing a tour of a resort. If you don't have kids, if you've never had kids, likely you'll just walk right by playgrounds without thinking much about them. If you're traveling with littles, especially there's a certain age of little that absolutely just needs to get energy out on a place like a playground, and it's really nice. They're well maintained. Most of them have sandy areas, although I feel like maybe that's being upgraded. But the point is that
now they all got that bouncy turf. Yeah.
They're not afterthoughts. Like it really is a nice amenity, and we have really depended on those in the past, as have other people that we've traveled with. So
they're almost always empty, and they're almost always tucked away. You're not going to see them in the like main pool area and stuff like that. They actually do kind of like tuck them away in a nice shady spot on the grounds.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the only big difference among resorts is that at All-Star Music and at Art of Animation, those two resorts have family suites, and they're big. and they're way different from the other rooms. They're more expensive, but I think, are we going to talk about that in a minute?
We will talk a little bit more about those as we go through the individual resorts.
You want to talk about nummies?
Yeah, so food options. Food's a huge part of vacations, and I want to give this some time because we often don't talk about food too much because we have allergies in the family, which mean we often have groceries delivered. Disney is pretty good with like allergen menus and things. There's often things we can eat wherever we go at Disney, but it's not the like, there are some people who go there to eat, and I respect that, and I realize that the food options at resorts often influence a lot of your decisions. So the big difference with the value resorts is compared to the moderate resorts, compared to the deluxe resorts, there are no special restaurants. We are looking at food court only.
Right. And that's probably a deal breaker for some people.
Yeah, some people are there because they want to sit down, they want to have the meals and stuff like that. But I will say this, the food courts, there are a ton of options. They have all the crowd pleasers. They got the pizza. They got the Mickey waffles. They're open all day. I mean, they do close, but they don't close until well after the parks close. They open early. You got your coffee. They all have little grab and go stations. Yeah. There's actually a ton of options in these food courts. So, I actually, and they have mobile ordering, which is super cool. You can like place your order from your room and walk over and it's going to be ready for you. So right. All the food courts are in the main building that we talked about. They all look very similar. For people who go all the time, they'll talk about like differences in menus, like all the Disney vloggers have like their favorites because, you know, someone has jambalaya and then someone else has the veggie burger and all of that. And cool. They all do have some different options, but kind of. I mean, they all really have the same basic things, but they have a lot of them. So I would say, you know, if dining and restaurants and like new kind of white glove eating experiences are like high on your list, the value resorts aren't going to deliver. You're going to have to go elsewhere. You're going to have to do that in the parks, or you're going to have to travel to other resorts to do that. But I have actually... The food court option, that's actually a pro for me when I am choosing a resort. I've stayed at moderate or even deluxe resorts where it's less convenient to eat. Like they might have a little grab and go area, but the boardwalk was a good example for me. I remember
that. It was a pain.
It was a pain in the butt. They had some restaurants that, yes, you could get in line, you could order your pizza, you could go get sandwiches, but it was not as convenient as just strolling in with the family and here are all the options and pile a tray and then go check out.
Those boardwalk shops, by the way, are not at all designed to do volume. And so around meal times, they just become pretty chaotic. Whereas these food courts are exactly designed for big, heavy, trafficked meal times. And so they're not hobbled by that. Like that's when they're humming at their most efficient.
Yeah, yeah. And so again, that is a common feature at the value resorts. They do the food court better than, frankly, any of the other types of resorts. So.
I'm with you. To me, it's a plus because I don't really give a crap. Food is fuel. Not that I don't love good food. It's just not part of why I go on vacations. And with food allergies on top of that, usually it's not worth the risk. So having, you know how like sometimes when you're on vacation and you've got a group of people together and y'all end up at like Chili's or the Cheesecake Factory, and you're just like, how did we let this happen? It's just because everybody wanted something slightly different. And so that's where I think like the food court shines, especially if you're traveling with kids. You got pizza, you got spaghetti, you got hamburgers, you got hot dogs, like all the standard cafeteria faves.
Yeah. And through the lens of a kiddo, like the food courts are exciting. They all have like a big, pretty dessert like station and ice cream and stuff like that. They're actually like, Yeah, I'm talking myself into food court right now. Like they're actually really well done, and they all have fun theming too. So it's not just like you're walking into the mall. Like
It's
they
true.
all
It
have,
doesn't look like a mall food
yeah,
court.
they all have their individual themes. Like, and that's really the thing that the very small differentiators, like among all the all-star resorts and Art of Animation and Pop Century, all the gift shops have a funny themed name. And they're just slight little differences that if you're, slowing down and appreciating the details, it's kind of fun.
Let's talk about the slight little differences, and let's start with All-Star Movies.
Yeah, let's do it.
So All-Star Movies, this was the last of all of the All-Stars to open, making it the newest All-Star resort. It opened in early 1999. Has around 2,000 rooms, 1,920 total rooms, I think. And it opened a full 5 years after the other All-Star resorts. And there was a little bit of, we'll get into that in a minute, why the weird construction happened and the changes that were made at the All-Star resorts as a response to some social stuff that was happening. But the theming at All-Star Movies, it's Disney movies, So it's going to... It has these huge, pop art, giant fiberglass type sculptures that are tributes to all kinds of Disney movies, both live action and animated. It's got different areas. There's the Fantasia area. There's the Love Bug area.
Because that's the most popular current Disney
hit.
It's
such a big part.
I know.
I love Herbie the Love Bug, and I even like the Lindsay Lohan movie, too. I think it's pretty good.
But our kiddo was like, what the hell is this?
Another section is Toy Story, which that is really fun. 101 Dalmatians, and the Mighty Ducks, which it feels out of place. But
it was 99, though,
but there's a Mighty Ducks pool. That's either the only secondary pool or what is it the only second?
Yeah.
So it's the second pool at All-Star Movies. I can never remember that that's at All-Star Movies because it seems like it should be at All-Star Sports. Anyway, you want to talk about the rooms?
Yeah. To finish the thoughts on the theming, it's useful to note that when they were creating the value resorts, no one was concerned that they'd get called tacky.
That's a good call. They're intentionally pretty good.
Yeah, they are big and brash, and that's actually one of my favorite parts is they go big, literally big on the theming. The buildings have giant Disney icons. I think that's cool because it's all the stuff that you want to take a selfie with, you can do it leisurely around your hotel. These are things that if they were in the parks, you'd be fighting to take photos of. So that's kind of cool.
It has, do you remember years ago when there was the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids attraction at Animal Kingdom, and you could go into that play area that was the gigantic dog nose and stuff like that? It reminds me of that because they're all so big.
Yeah, they really are. The rooms, on the other hand, are they're all pretty much the same at the All-Star resorts, so I won't do this for 3 resorts. I'll give you a quick description of the rooms. They've all, at this point, it makes it easy, they have all finally had a renovation completed. The renovation has been going on for, 5, 6, 10 years. They've been renovating the rooms at the All-Star resorts for quite a number of years, and finally the last one was completed last year. So they all look the same. No matter what All-Star resort you stay at, you're going to get similar theming. You get a main bed, and then you get a then there's in a standard room, which is mostly what you get at All-Star resorts. And then you get a Murphy bed that folds up into the wall and becomes a dining room table. It's
clever.
It is. It's cute too, and you pull it down, and it's got Disney art in the bed. The rooms are cute. They're simple. They're clean, modern, no carpeting anymore, which is nice.
You like the no carpeting?
I like no carpeting.
Because carpeting grosses you out.
Carpeting grosses
you think of all
you
of the
out.
milks that have been spilled.
All the milks that have been spilled, and especially if you're at a resort where the pool is the thing, just all the wet feet that have... No. So anyway, you don't get much in the way of amenities. You get a drink cooler and no microwave. We have crammed meals and real food in the drink cooler a number of times. I don't think we've ever gotten horrible food poisoning, but they're not what it's built for.
Yeah, they're not designed for that. And they're not effing around. Like, they want you to come eat.
They do.
At the food court.
Absolutely.
And they're making it a little harder for you to eat in your room.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, if you do your shopping in response to what's available, then you certainly have options in the room.
Yeah, and we've requested microwaves before, again, because we do a lot of our eating in the rooms. It's a roll of the dice. Sometimes they got a microwave to spare, and sometimes they don't.
Every single time they're like, oh, yeah, we got you covered. Sometimes they show up and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. But yeah, the bathrooms are pretty basic. You get the basic amenities. An ironing board. Every hotel everywhere, no matter the tier, you get like an ironing board. What is up with that? Like, it's this bygone era where we ironed clothes and like hotels just refuse to give it up.
I wonder if there's other things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, because I haven't used I use an iron occasionally, but like I'm also kind of a crafty person. I like to sew and stuff.
Yeah.
I just feel like your average.
Yeah.
Do they all have irons and ironing boards? Because wouldn't it be funny if there was one but not the other?
Now that you're mentioning...
They must, right?
They must have irons, but now that you're saying it, I'm like, I can picture the ironing board, but not the iron.
The ironing board is a weird vestige of past travel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are like subtle little frills that change on the value resorts sometimes. One thing that like went away that made like an impression on us, but it's kind of silly, is their lotion, their H2O lotion. The H2O lotion. It's like a signature Disney scent if you've done like a lot of vacationing at Disney. Their H2O lotion, which I think is going away everywhere. But like at some point they were like, no free lotion for you at the value resorts. And you're like, that's just kind of a dick move. But whatever. The updated rooms are good. They were thoughtful about like charging ports and things like that.
Yeah, like USBs where you can plug stuff in. Although I feel like so many room renovations were done, not just at Disney, but across like the whole hospitality industry. And they all updated to USB-A low voltage ports. And so it's like, now that we all use devices that need USB-C, they're kind of useless.
Yeah, it is. You gotta bring your bricks. Pools?
The pools, the main pool is the Fantasia pool. Themed as Fantasia, the Disney movie Fantasia. Sorcerer Mickey sprays water. As though, like in The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Yeah. And then there's also, yes?
That's it. All the pools are fun. They're all their own little photo ops. Yeah.
It is true. The themes of the pools are really fun. The secondary pool at this resort is the Duck Pond pool. Mentioned it earlier. It's Mighty Ducks themed. And that whole area is very Mighty Ducks themed. And if you're into the Mighty Ducks, it's cool. I guess. I'm not, though.
Yeah. With the pools, it kind of depends on what your pool vibe is, but it's always worth, like, especially if you're looking for, like, a little more privacy, it's always worth taking a peek at the secondary pool because sometimes you'll get it, like, almost all to yourself.
True.
Like, people head for the big main pool because it is, like, always, like, it's way bigger, and it's right by, there's always a pool bar.
True. There's almost never a bar by the secondary pool, but there's always a bar at the primary pool.
There's a bar, and you're right next to the food court. You're next to all the stuff, so everyone gravitates toward the main pool. If you're really just like looking to get your swim on, like check out the secondary pool because it's far smaller, but sometimes there's just nobody there. So in terms of other features at this resort, like I said, they're all pretty much the same. The only difference really is the theming of the name and the like artwork around these things. So at All-Star Movies, you get the world premiere food court, you get the silver screen spirits pool bar, you get the Real Fun arcade, Real, R-E-E-L.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Donald's double feature is the gift shop, and then worth mentioning, most of the value resorts, like most I think maybe all the Disney
think all the
resorts.
Disney resorts.
They do the movies under the stars as well, which they'll have their designated area. They'll put up an inflatable screen and they'll play movies most nights, which is kind of cool.
It's cute.
Yeah. The gift shops they have great gift shops, I think. They have
Agreed.
they have little basics and stuff. The gift shops do vary a little bit in what they have. They're all going to have the basics, but like if you're staying at the All-Star Resort, like I've actually like hopped from like when I went shopping, like I've hit like all 3 of the All-Star Resorts in a trip just to see what might be different at each one. And the answer is not much, but something.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that is something that is pretty fun to do. Like if you're a walk around the resort and check it all out type of person, since they are clustered, you can fairly easily get to the other all-star resorts. So like if you want to go try a different food court or go shop at a different gift shop or whatever, it is doable.
Yeah, or if you're just getting out to take photos, like they all have great photo ops, so it's worth wandering around all those resorts. So, okay, up next, All-Star Music.
All-Star Music opened in late 94. It's got about 1,600 total rooms. So it's smaller than the other 2 All-Star resorts. But it does have family suites. And I think the family suites are a pretty great option, especially if you're traveling with a big group of people.
Yeah, and I should clarify because I think I put in our notes that it's smaller, but it's actually just fewer rooms. It's exactly the same like stamped out print of all the All-Star resorts. It just has fewer rooms because some of them were turned into family suites.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Theming wise, the theming is tribute to the great musicians of all time. So you've got Broadway show tunes, calypso, country, jazz, and rock and roll. I don't know why these were the genres that were chosen.
Yeah, there is no rap building. Yeah. So not
no
all.
EDM building.
Yeah, But yeah, no, the areas have their own little theming. It's a little less character heavy than the movies resort.
Right, like IP wise. Yeah.
Just because, it's the calypso, you got your like little like maracas and stuff, and country music area, you got like boots and whatever else comes with country music.
Well, music wise, one of my favorite ways to prepare for a Disney vacation is to go to YouTube Music or just to YouTube and find like the resort audio loops, the music loops that the resorts play. Music is different. Mm-hmm. You can't find them there because what they do is they play like popular music, whatever Disney's giant conglomerate structure of ownership. I don't know what they own. My point is that it's just like, it's not Disney music, usually. It's like music.
Yeah. So rooms, as we mentioned, the standard rooms are the same across all the All-Star resorts. The exception at All-Star Music is that they are the only All-Star resort to have the family suites, and I actually didn't even know that until we were preparing for this podcast. So the family suites, they sleep 6 people. You get a queen bed in a room, and then you get like 2 queen pull downs in the living room. But you also get a small kitchenette, like I say kitchenette, but like it's a full kitchen. You get a full-size fridge, you get a microwave, you get countertops and things like that.
Well, it's not a full kitchen in the sense that you don't get like a dishwasher, you don't get a stove,
right,
but you do get a fridge instead of a drink cooler, and they do by default give you a microwave. So like you can actually do some meal prep.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, I'm going to be looking for these rooms the next time we're booking because that would be a big difference for us. Of course, as you might imagine, it does cost you a little bit more for the family suites. You're looking more at like moderate resort baseline prices. Throw on about $100 a night for that. Rates are between about $250 and $315 per night, but at peak or holiday seasons, I can get up to $350 or $450, and they're at All-Star Music in particular. The number of family suites is pretty limited. Limited.
It's limited. It's true. I mean, if you're going during like peak travel times, if you don't book in advance, you're probably not going to get one of
Yep.
those. Yeah, there just aren't that many. I actually don't. Do you know how many there are?
It would be like 200, I think. It's essentially because it has 1,600 rooms total compared to 1,900 at the other
Right.
all-star resorts. So that's because they essentially just took 2 standard rooms and smushed them together.
Makes sense. Pool-wise, the main pool is called the Calypso Pool. It's shaped like a guitar. It's a heated pool. I think they're all heated.
Oh, I can. They are definitely all heated.
I will tell you that they're not heated enough for me. Like it's too cold.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Calypso pool, in the middle, you've got the Three Caballeros spraying water at everybody. I'm a Three Caballeros fan. I don't know. Aren't we all? Donald Duck, Jose Carioca, and Panchito. And then the secondary pool is called the Piano Pool, which makes me feel like that scene from Big when they're in Eva's where it's running around on a piano.
Yeah.
It's got like a big, larger-than-life piano keyboard.
Yeah, and they're like, don't run at the pool. And it's like I'm not going to run across this
Right.
keyboard. Yeah, no good.
What else?
Yeah.
What else do we get?
Oh, well, if you appreciate the little different names that they give everything here at the music resort, they have Intermission Food Court, Singing Spirits Pool Bar, Maestro Mickey's is their gift shop, and the Notable Arcade.
Because it's like a music note.
Yeah.
It's notable.
It's notable. Okay. On to sports. All right, the final of the All-Star resorts.
All-Star Sports opened in spring of '94, so the other All-Star resorts all kind of opened around the same time.
It went sports in '94, and then later that year it went music. But then they waited for some reason for 5 years before opening movies. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
I have theories.
Okay.
I'm not going to share them now, though.
Yeah.
They're too controversial.
Yeah, of course.
It was the first of the All-Star resorts to open. This one also 1,920 rooms. They did a big refurbishment just last year. It was the last of all the ones to get updated.
Isn't it weird? It was like the first to open and the last to get refurbished. So it did. It got pretty grody.
We have a short that there was like a room that was mid-renovation that we went in and captured like the really tacky wallpaper and stuff. It's wild to think that that's what you were paying. That's the room that you were getting up until like 2023.
Yeah, 30-year-old wallpaper.
So just like the other All-Star resorts, there are different themed areas, including Surf's Up, which is funny because that's the name of a Sony Pictures animated film about surfing penguins. Anyway, Hoops Hotel, Hoops, Center Court, Touchdown, Home Run Hotel. These names are awful.
Yeah, I don't know. And this is like the one that they decided to give like every area like a silly name.
Surf's Up, Hoops Hotel. Anyway.
Anyhow.
Like the other All-Star resorts, giant novelty items abound. In this case, it's mostly like sports equipment.
I mean, they cram some Disney in there. They add some character accents. Like there's, I think, if I recall correctly, it's like the nephews. Donald and the nephews are like scattered,
so pissed off,
scattered
like playing
around.
tennis or whatever.
Yeah. There's a really pissed off Donald playing tennis, and the nephews are doing antics. So there are characters scattered about. They made sure they put some Disney magic in there. But for my money, All-Star Movies is the one that's heaviest on the Disney theming because it's Disney movies.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Pools.
Pools at sports are the Surfboard Bay Pool. They also have, and it's worth noting if we didn't, that all of these also have a kiddie pool offshoot.
Oh yeah, we didn't note that, but they've got like a wading pool area.
Yeah, as a part like
urine. And,
yes, urine pools are located off the main pool. So Surfboard Bay Pool, they got giant 3-story surfboards like lining the area. The secondary pool is the Grand Slam pool. That's an additional pool that's shaped like a baseball diamond. You got a goofy fountain that squirts water moderate swimmers. And as with all the others, you get your poolside activities.
This one's got a food court called the End Zone. Their bar is called Grandstand Spirits. Their gift shop is called Sport Goofy Gifts and Sundries. And the arcade is called Game Point Arcade. Let's talk about Pop Century.
Yeah, moving on from the all-star resorts, which were definitely those are the cheapest. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about Pop Century, and then we're going to talk about Art of Animation.
Yep.
And you're going to pay more for both of these, even though they are value resorts.
Yeah. So Pop Century is just like a slight tick above the all-star sports on an average cost per room basis. Really not that much more. You see a bigger jump with the Art of Animation. So Pop Century is a bit newer than even the newest All-Star Resort. It opened December 14th, my birthday. Yay! In 2003. It has 2,880 rooms. So it's big. It's much bigger than the All-Star.
That's almost 1,000 more rooms.
Yeah. It is. It's expensive.
Expansive?
Expensive. Expansive.
Oh.
Yeah. The way they did that is the like 3-story buildings that you get at the All-Star resorts, at Pop Century, they're 4-story buildings.
I'll be darned. I never noticed that.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
That's a great way to increase the number of rooms.
Right, just layer people on top of each other. Okay, so Pop Century didn't go fully according to original plan. The original plans for Pop Century anticipated that there would be like 2 big sections to this resort, one called Legendary Years and one called Classic Years, and that there'd be a big divide between the properties, between the first and second halves of the century, respectively.
So we'd be like turn of the century to 1950 and then 1960 to present?
Yeah, and that just isn't how it went. I don't really have a clear sense of what they were going to make legendary years and what was going to be classic. I didn't get like a clear answer on that. But that's not how it worked anyway, because of a little something called September 11th did some weird things to the tourism industry. Everyone got to like
my brother's birthday. Yay!
Everyone got to if you were in the tourism industry, you got like a free pass to just completely change your plans based on September 11th. So they had essentially built the first half of Pop Century, and then all plans for its second half essentially went on hold as a result of the September 11th attacks. Ultimately, what was going to be a second half of Pop Century, connected by a bridge, became Disney's Art of Animation, and that didn't open until 2012.
This is a really interesting story to me because they sat like abandoned for a long time, and I want to know more about that because people would even go explore these.
Yeah,
because
the Art of Animation buildings.
I think so.
Because they had started construction but not finished construction. Right. It was a very strange process.
Are we going to talk about this later, or are we going to?
No.
Do you want to talk about the fact that because they're like 2 different? It's like 2 different resorts almost, right?
Yeah, essentially, Art of Animation. I guess we will talk about this a little bit more.
Okay.
But, I love that Generations Bridge was designed to connect the 2 halves of Pop Century, and it was called Generations because that would have fit in with it. But it's still called Generations Bridge, but like name stayed, concept died.
Well, and it's now the spot to take the Skyliner. That's where they built the station, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In 2017, that's when Pop Century started doing a really extensive refurbishment.
Which is funny. That's only 14 years after it opened, whereas poor little All-Star Sports went like a full 30 years.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It does make... Do you think sports fanatics are just that gullible?
Yeah.
So they added queen-size beds, same as we were talking at music.
Well, they also added the Murphy beds, which is like what a part of like what they did as the refurbishment over at All Star Sports.
All right, so took out carpets. You get a small fridge. drink cooler, or is it an actual fridge?
I think it's a drink cooler.
It's probably a drink cooler. That refurbishment was finished by the summer of 2018, and the Skyliner opened in 2019. So those things were kind of timed to coincide. And that's actually, that's one of the reasons that these resorts that are near the Skyliner, they are a little more expensive, but you do get that added perk. So there's that.
Yeah, and we'll get to Art of Animation, but honestly, like the proximity of Pop Century to Art of Animation, I think is cool as well, just because that is definitely a resort worth resort hopping. So.
Yeah, and it's Pop Century is less expensive, so you could just walk over there. I mean, it's close.
Yeah, exactly. So the theming of Pop Century is all the different decades, and it is so cheesy. It's so, I mean, you got to just go in, like, you got to be willing to laugh at it, because if you're going for, like, don't stay at Pop Century if you're going for anything remotely classy. It is as cheesy as it gets. It makes you question the stereotypes that we assign to each decade, to be honest. So you get the areas are 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. In the 50s, so for example, in the 1950s sections, you get bowling pin staircases. There's a big Lady and the Tramp statue, because that came out in the 50s, I guess. Yeah?
I guess so.
I think so.
Yeah.
But that's how they got Disney IP into it. So they are like wedging Disney IP into this resort so that you get your big selfies and stuff like that. But mostly it focuses on the decades. So there's the Lady and the Tramp statue. There's 45 RPM records, a transistor radio, a jukebox, and then the bowling pin pool is in the 1950s.
The 60s, you get yo-yos. Staircases themed as yo-yos, hippie flowers all over the railings that surround the hippy dippy pool, a big giant peace symbol, Baloo with Mowgli.
Yeah,
I guess. Oh, sure, it came out in the 60s. Okay, fine. Play-Doh, which all right.
Okay, yeah.
And then there's a goofy.
You're like learning something. You're like, oh, did Play-Doh come out in the 60s? Cool. Like.
And then there's a statue of Goofy with his surfboard in front of a 64 Chevy Corvette Stingray coupe, which I guess was part of like a splash pad before or something.
I guess so.
All right, well.
According to my notes.
So if you need to take like a calendar style photo.
I have many photos of me laying on that Corvette. Yeah. 1970s, you get 8-track tape staircases. Because that's what all the kids are going to know what that is. Disco dancing. That's where you get. Oh, okay. We said that the foosball setup was in. We said it was over at Sports, but correction. See? It's actually over in the 1970s building of Pop Century.
Thank you.
But there is, so that shows you like how much weird crossover there is, where you're like, this is a sport. Why isn't this a sport? Anyway, sports screws it all up. There's a 4-story tall big wheel.
That is
kind of fun.
Big.
It is a
wheel.
It is a big wheel. There's a Mickey Mouse phone, giant Mickey Mouse phone. You can have your photos taken with. Mood ring, and there are 2 Twister play areas in the 1970s.
Twister.
I guess it came out in the 70s. Again, you're learning something. Like the game Twister. Red dot. Yeah, right hand red.
Like the tornado movie.
Oh yeah, no.
In the 1980s, they are Rubik's Cube themed staircases. You get Roger Rabbit, a big, huge Walkman, Mr. Potato Head, Michael Jackson.
I think maybe there's a silhouette of him, perhaps, on the building. I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to check that one. But
a lot of Pac-Man, and then there is the computer pool. Shared with the 90s?
Yeah, like the 80s and 90s buildings are like close to each other, so they share a pool. So
and the pool has like it's like a Dell from like 89, a big laptop.
Yeah, yeah. So the 1990s, you have cell phone staircases, old school cell phones, of course, giant laptop, giant floppy disks, and a computer keyboard.
Remember floppy disks?
I do. I was alive in the 90s. Rollerblades, hip hop dance. I think it just says hip hop dance. Am I right about that? It's like hip hop dance.
Like there's not characters dancing, it's just words that say hip hop.
I'm gonna have
dance?
to look up the photos, but yeah, hip hop dance. And then again, the computer pool is shared with the 80s building. So that's Pop Century. Classy. It's fine. It's a perfectly fine resort. It has all the amenities of the all-star resorts. It's a bit bigger. Location to the Skyliner, cool.
The rooms, same as all the others, pretty much. The theming is a little simpler. It's all like Mickey and the gang.
The refurb was just, it was like prints of Mickey.
Which is fine. Looks okay. It's just simple. And some rooms have a queen and a queen pull-down bed, and there are others with just a king bed. So, pool-wise, this one has dry. It's got 3 pools. Ooh. You've got the main pool, which is the 60s hippy-dippy pool. Hippies are so dippy.
Dippy, you take a dip in the pool.
Oh, I get it. That's embarrassing. I never got that before. It has flower-shaped water jets.
Yeah.
That's neat. And then they've got 2 more pools. The smaller, there's the bowling pool and then the computer pool.
Yeah. Other features, like I said, it's very much like the all-star resorts. There's the everything pop shopping and dining. That's the food court and the gift shop for the resort. The gift shop has products based on the 1950s through the 90s, standard Disney merch. Food court has some different specialty shops, Mom's Kitchen, grill shop, pizza shop, sandwiches, soups, salads, all the standard fare. It's built to accommodate the higher traffic because it's a larger resort. There are more people. They got a grab and go market, and then the Pedals Pool Bar is located at the Hippy Dippy Pool.
One last thing about Pop Century, and that is the art in the lobby, which is I don't remember what the name of the main area is, but sometimes I'll spend like an hour in there just looking. They have these shadow boxes.
They do, yeah, with all the little trinkets. Yeah.
And it's just like toys and little pop culture trinkets from all the different decades. And while the theming of the resort is super cheesy, this display is actually like really cool.
It is. It's like a little museum. Yeah. That is cool.
You want to move on to art animation?
Yes.
Okay. So
this is my favorite.
So art of animation, like we were talking about before, is what happened when the unfinished half of Disney's Pop Century Resort was started, but then delayed. So what they did is instead of making Pop Century bigger, they just rolled it out into a new resort called Art of Animation. The family suites, which are available at Art of Animation, opened in 2012, early 2012, and then the rest of the rooms opened late in 2012. So this one is small. It's got less than 1,000 rooms, about 980 rooms with...
Actually, it's big.
Oh, I thought the total number was...
Yeah. No, this breaks it down into like standard rooms and suites.
Gotcha.
So it's actually about as big as Pop Century, but way fewer rooms because of the suites.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So in 2005, they experimented with converting some of the rooms at the All-Star Music Resort into 2-room suites. So that was like a lower cost option for families, larger families that wanted to stay in the same room.
It was essentially their like proof of concept that people wanted family suites. Which, I mean, I could have told them that. Like, people would want family suites. So the fact that they did a couple hundred over at the All-Star Music Resort, they were immediately in demand. And so I think that was a big reason why they decided to make Art of Animation almost, not entirely, but like leaned really heavy into the family suites with more than 1,000 of them.
And we've stayed in those suites, and they're great. They're I think some of them are themed to Finding Nemo, and some of them are themed to Cars.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the theming.
Let's do it.
So Art of Animation, as you might imagine, is like a celebration of animation. So you get a lot of like ink and paint art all over the place. I love the theming at this resort. The resort has 4 areas featuring popular Disney characters, but even within the theme, like, you're gonna get a lot of like sketches and stuff like that.
They do a lot of concept art.
Yeah, a lot of concept art.
They give a lot of love to the process of the creation of these characters.
Yeah. So those 4 areas are Cars, Finding Nemo, The Lion King, and The Little Mermaid. So Finding Nemo, this was the first area of the resort to open up in May of 2012. As you might imagine, it's under the sea themed. It's got all your favorite characters from Finding Nemo, with the ocean setting and underwater plants and animal decorations throughout the building. This is the area, Finding Nemo is the area that encompasses like the main pool. Then there's Cars, that opened second in June of 2012, and it's themed like Radiator Springs. It's got its own little cozy cone motel as featured in the film, and the resort buildings are heavily themed with the characters. You can take selfies with like all your favorites, Lightning McQueen, Mater. The Lion King is the third section that opened in August of 2012. It's kind of tucked away, and it's a little bit closer, and it's very like nature feeling, and you got all your characters that you can kind of walk under and around and climb on. This is one you can actually climb on some of the characters.
Yeah. And the buildings themselves are they're backdrops, which is a little different than some of the other sections of the resort where the buildings are intended to be like the feature. But in the Lion King section, the buildings just look like jungle, and it's the big giant sculptures that's what you're intended to look at.
Yeah. And so those 3 areas of the resort all have, their buildings have interior hallways, and that's where all the family suites are. And then there's the Little Mermaid section. That was the 4th section to open in September of 2012. That actually it has more of the like all-star style buildings that open to the outside, and that's actually where the standard rooms are versus the family suites with the external walkways and all of that.
So that means that the Little Mermaid portion was the one that was built at the same time or near to Pop Century, right?
Yeah, exactly. Before they pivoted to focus on the family suites and a different theme.
So the rooms are themed pretty heavily to what area of the resort that you find yourself in. Little Mermaid, like you said, that's the only place to find those standard rooms. They're going to have 1 king bed or 2 queen beds in them. The family suites are themed to Cars, Lion King, and Finding Nemo. We've stayed in Cars and Finding Nemo, but never the Lion King.
Never the Lion King, yeah.
The family suites, you get a bedroom with a queen-size bed, and then 1 double convertible table bed.
Yeah, so you get one of the pull-down table beds, and then
Is this the Murphy beds that are in the...
Yeah, okay. And then you also get a double like sleeper sofa, so you can sleep up to 6.
Okay.
But you can also, if you don't have 6, you can tuck away parts of it and pretend like it's a table or a sofa instead of a bed.
You get a living room, 2 bathrooms, and a kitchenette. And we talked about what the kitchenette looks like a little earlier. So you get a full-size fridge and a microwave, standard. The theming, I mean, you've already talked about it a little bit. The theming at Art of Animation is really good. The Cars suites, like the sofas in those suites, they make them to look like a hot rod seats, like they're made to look like upholstery, like car upholstery, and there's chrome on the dressers and stuff. So they're definitely, the theming's not an afterthought here. They really put a lot of care into all of the fit and finish in these themed rooms.
Yeah. The color palette, like they're all like, it's really like, if I were a kid, I'd lose my mind. Like as an adult, I kind of lose my mind. I love theming in rooms, and they go really heavy with it, which is cool. The pools are like a huge draw for this resort. The Big Blue pool, which is the Finding Nemo pool, that is actually the largest pool in the Walt Disney World Resort, and that's saying something because they do big pools. And then it's inspired by Finding Nemo. It has a kids play area, but like this kids play area isn't just like a little like puddle of pee. It's like it's like a really
big puddle of
it's
pee.
a big puddle of pee. But it's actually a huge like landscape of like. It's built to look like coral with all the like little characters in it, and you can climb around. It's actually really quite cool. Also, the Big Blue Pool features underwater speakers. So if you like hold your breath and go under the water, you can hear Disney music.
Maybe.
Oh, well, I have a story about that.
Let's hear it.
Well, because we were told when we first went there, and I guess we didn't even like look at the internet to verify this. We were told it was the Little Mermaid pool that you could go and like stick your head under and listen to Ariel sing. But it's not. It's the Big Blue Pool, and they're just playing like Disney music. So now I need to go back.
Have you heard underwater music in the Big Blue Pool?
Mm-hmm. Let us know.
Yeah.
The other two pools that are smaller but still very heavily themed, the Cozy Cone pool, is obviously in the Cars area. It's fun because the little cabanas are cones.
Yeah.
Like, I think...
And you don't have to like rent them or whatever. It's first come, first serve.
You can just sit in there. And then the Flippin' Fins pool.
Flippin' Fins.
Flippin' Fins, featuring the Under the Sea Orchestra. That's the Little Mermaid pool. So...
Cool.
Yep.
The food court's called Landscape of Flavors. You get, American cuisine, whatever that is, burgers and stuff. There's also deli items. It's open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's got a lot of seating. It'll seat more than 600 people. The pool is called The Drop-Off Pool Bar. Quick serve kiosk. You could get alcoholic drinks like terrible prepackaged wines.
Copa de Vino.
Is it Copa de Vino?
Oh,
yeah. Mm-hmm. It's bad.
You can buy little bottles too in the grab.
They do have good wine. It's not Copa de Vino though.
Yeah.
They open midday, close late in the evening. You can get pizza delivery from the food court area,
which is unique. That's delivery. There, I don't believe there's any other value resort that does like food delivery to the room.
I think you're right. Pizza, sandwiches, desserts, salads, stuff like that. Standard pizza joint menu, and then they've got the ink and paint shop, which is their gift shop. So this one is pretty heavily themed. A lot of art of animation themed clothing. Mm-hmm. Like, can you picture any?
I can picture my mug that I bought, which I love. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's also got a little grocery section. A lot of them do kind of in the back, where it's not just this one, like many of them do, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they almost all within the gift shop. If the food court's closed, the gift shop's closed too. But the food available in the gift shop is much more like like sandwich, like turkey meat, eggs, strangely. I want to say,
butter. Mm-hmm. Little bottles of wine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. We have spent the last hour talking about all of the different value resorts. One of the things that we've talked about the most is how similar they are to one another. So, like, what's your conclusion, Luke?
You could probably tell from how I talked about it, I am a huge fan of the art of animation. The theming it's not, in my opinion, just the best of the value resorts. I actually think, especially if you have kids, I think it's the best theming in Walt Disney World.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, resort-wise.
Resort-wise, okay. Yeah. Talking about resorts, I mean, there are like the deluxe resorts like the Polynesian where it's like, okay, the theming is totally infused throughout everything. But in terms of just like art of animation feels less like a hotel and more like it feels kind of like a little mini theme park because of how immersive the areas are. So I really do love the art of animation, especially if you're traveling with a family. The family suites are great. The Skyliner access at that hotel is super helpful. But you pay more for it. So you got to do your calculations. So if you want to kind of experience all that theming and spend a little less, you can stay at Pop Century and you can walk across the bridge and you can check out all the cool outdoor stuff. You can cheat that way. That's totally fine. But if you're looking for the family suites and you're trying, and if you'd end up having to, if you have a bigger family and you'd end up spending money for 2 rooms anyway, go get yourself a family suite at Art of Animation. That's absolutely worth it. It is a higher price, but in my opinion, it's definitely worth it.
With all of these different options for hotels and resorts all over Walt Disney World, we really do think that the choice of your hotel is probably the best place to try and save the most money. Mainly because you're not going to have a shitty experience. None of these hotels are bad. Even going all the way down to the least expensive value resorts, they all serve families perfectly well. If you're not into eating at a food court, if you need fancier amenities, then of course, look at some of the other resorts. But for us, we think that the value resorts are really, in most ways, every bit as good as all of the other resorts, and in some ways, even better. And to consider that you would spend so much less money on these resorts, it's a pretty easy decision for us to make. Most of the time, when we're booking trips, we like to stay at the value resorts.
And here's the secret. If you want to see the Polynesian, you want to see the Grand Floridian, the Contemporary, hop on the monorail when you're at Epcot or when you're at the Magic Kingdom and go wander around those resorts. You can do that. You can kind of soak in that atmosphere. You can have a tiki drink at the Polynesian without paying Polynesian prices. And then, hop on a shuttle and head on over to your value resort.
And here's an extra little tip. If you do want to go to the Polynesian, Trader Sam's is extremely cool and everybody should see it at least once. But it also gets really busy, and so if you want to just walk right outside to the patio, you can also get the same drinks out there. So that's what I usually do, is I'll stay at a different resort and then go into the Polynesian at night and enjoy the live music and some tiki drinks.
Yep, and be satisfied that you're still paying value resort prices.
Long story short, we really do think that Disney's value resorts deliver really good value. So we highly recommend them, especially for families. So look, thank you so much for staying with us this far. Thanks for watching our podcast. Definitely, if you're interested in learning more, check out our full tours. We have full walking tours of the All-Star Movies Resort and the Art of Animation Resort, and you'll see those right here. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next one.